Hi, everyone. Thank you all for tuning in, listening, watching another episode of the Stivers Show. Excited about my guest today. Longtime friend, known him for a while, haven't seen him in a long time. Efrain Sora with Sora Global Risk Advisors. Efrain, what's going on, man?
Well, good to see you, Justin. I mean, you're right. It's been a few years since, we keep mailing back and forth, but that doesn't seem to be, the thing now. So I'm glad to be here. I'm glad to see you. I'm glad to know that everything's going well for you. The baby's coming up, and it sounds great.
Yeah.
I mean, so glad for you.
I appreciate that. And I know we were kind of chatting and you kind of made a pivot in your business. Sounds like things are going well. So why don't we just kind of start there, and I'll just turn it over to you. Maybe have you introduce yourself and talk a little bit about what you do.
Sure. Hi, my name is Efrain Sora, and I am the owner and principal of Sora Global Risk Advisors. And we are an insurance agency, and we used to be up to December 31st of 2020, Sora Global Insurance and Consulting. And we found out actually last year, as we were at home, we were doing chamber stuff and other networking events where it took a lot of time. So we started researching to see how we could best serve our clients, not only our clients, but our prospects. And so we realized that part of what's missing out there, there's a component that's missing out there from some of us insurance agents, and not all of us, but some of us. And we wanted to stand apart, and that component that makes us stand apart is that being a risk advisor. And so I was sort of explaining to you during our conversation previously, what that meant for us. And what that means is we come into to your business, and usually it's a small to medium sized business. And we'll take a look at your business, and from the inside out. We'll talk to you to the business owners. We'll talk to the executives, to the CEO. We'll have a conversation if they allow us to. We'll have a conversation with some of the employees, and the reason for the employees is because the employee knows more about the business than probably the CEO does, or even the owner, right? I'm talking about the details of the business, what's going on, and so we come up with a report, and that report goes anywhere from general liability, which could be things in your business, especially if you're a manufacturing firm or something like that, or construction, that's out there, that's a liability. Physical liability could cause damage to an individual, and or all the way to cyber security, and because that's a big thing nowadays, and a lot of times we don't get it, is that we are all exposed to all sorts of ransomware and all sorts of things. And the average medium-sized business that was hit in 2019, 50% of those that had to pay were out of business within the first 6 months after the attack. The bigger guys, I have one of my providers, one of the carriers that I use for my international insurance, that they got hit in the beginning of 2020, and all they did was shut down one server and picked up on the next one. And so I mean, it took them like 2 or 3 weeks to do so, but they did it. The rest of us, are now first we have to come up with the money, and then we have to. Then we have to see what happens after that. We have to clean out all our servers. We have to clean out our computers. We have to bring, the IT guys in, and that's all costly. And we are not aware how much risk out there is, especially when we started working from home. And some of these guys, and we hear about the Russians and the Pakistanis and the this and the Chinese and all that, and they're out there, and they realized that during the pandemic, it was easier to target us working from home than it was actually the companies. And I'm talking on a smaller level, right? I'm not talking about the bigger companies. The bigger companies, they're going to go for them directly to their servers. So that's basically what what we did. We realized that we just didn't pick up and do it. We actually went to school for it. We took courses and throughout last year on how to be a better risk advisor, on how to go in there and actually look at the nitty gritty of a company, and then come back and explain to the decision makers, listen, this is this is where you should be covered. And sometimes we'll bring in experts that have nothing to do with insurance, but it's part of our services. We'll bring in like an IT guy, a cybersecurity guy to take a look at your system, and we'll take we may bring in an HR person because we feel that HR that you might be lapsing somewhere in like your employee relations, and your EPLI may be in peril, and so we sort of we go beyond insurance to create an environment where we mitigate your risks. So basically that's where we're at right now.
Curious on the cybersecurity component, because obviously in the news all the time now, hacks and everything else, constantly threat of cyber attacks. I'm curious though, you as a professional going in and trying to sell and protect some of these businesses by offering the insurance products, are businesses still a little bit like, yeah, that's an extra insurance product, it's an extra cost, I don't want to deal with it? Or is it now becoming like car insurance, it's like, no, I got to have it, like there's no question about it, I need to have it? Or is it like getting more acceptable, or still just a pain?
In the middle market to smaller market commercial entities, they're still leery about it. They don't want to go through the expense, and it's and we show them where the statistics are, and you hear it every day. It's in the news, it's everywhere. People, and we're not talking about, again, the big guys. We're talking about people like you and I, who have our smaller businesses, and again, working from home, that exposes tremendously, because sometimes in the beginning, some of the employees were using the same computers that for shopping at the big brand internet companies, not to put any names out there, and we all know who. And then doing other things on the internet, they're looking for this or looking for that, and that's the same computer that they were using for their business, and that's a no-no. It's really interesting, because when you go into a company, whether it's working from home or even before that, the employee, the majority of the hacks occur because the employee is not aware. They're not aware. I mean, education is that's why we like to bring in IT people, not only to look at the systems and to evaluate them, but also to educate the employee. The employee doesn't know. I mean, your average clerical employee, they don't know. They don't have that type of security at home. They're not that aware. And so they'll go into their the same computer that they do their accounting, their business accounting. They go in there and they go, oh, wait a minute, I needed a pair of shoes, let me go, and then it opens the door. But unfortunately, the employers, they'll bring in the IT guy. That they'll do. They'll bring in the IT guy, and they'll spend a lot of money on the IT guy, and they should. But when it comes to mitigating any losses, I was at a conference back in 2019 at and there was there was an IT guy, vice president of whatever they call it, in IT, let's say, and he from an XYZ huge company, and the guy says, if I had $1 billion, and that really caught my ears, is I had $1 billion just to put into IT, says, I couldn't plug all the holes. I could not plug all the holes. $1 billion. I mean, that's a lot of money to, budget. He said, if I had $1 billion budget just for IT, I couldn't plug all the holes. So that's where insurance comes in. And so it's that, not that we plug the holes, it's that we mitigate the risk of those holes that are not being able to be plugged, and things happen. Absolutely.
So was your shift, partly out in response to the pandemic, seeing this need? I know you said you were doing some education and were informed about cybersecurity and stuff before. Obviously, it came more to the forefront with the pandemic. But I'm just curious because I know, I kind of know you as the insurance guy and have a large international presence, which I've always thought was pretty interesting. But did the pandemic cause you to kind of shift focus or just add these additional services, or was it just the right time, you saw a need and kind of wanted to come in and offer the risk advisor component of it?
No, it was in the pandemic. It was just that we had the time to sit here and just go. Not just we don't want to put up a shingle and say, oh, we're risk advisors. We don't want to do that because there's a lot of components to it. It's talking to an attorney, right? Liability. My E&O is my errors and omissions out there, all the time. So I need to be able to know what I'm speaking about. So I researched it, and there's a company that offers what's called a designation, and it gave me a designation of Trusted Risk Advisor, TRA. It's after my name. So and what that does, it was extensive, classes during the year, and it helped me to understand from not only from an insurance perspective, but from an outside perspective of the risk. I mean, we all know the basic risks. I mean, right now we're in hurricane season, right? So a week before hurricane season, I put out to my clients, I say, you need to do this, you need to check for that. So those are the basic things. But when it comes to and very specific, right? Because we're talking about business liability, and it's very specific. But in general, when you walk into a company and you see sometimes things that are going on that have been going on for years, and actually the owners, not that they don't care, they do once you point it out to them, but they're not aware, and you're seeing them from a different eyes. That's why the bigger guys, the huge guys, they have risk advisors. They have their own risk management group within the company because they know it's a huge part, of their business, not only to mitigate the risks themselves, but also to mitigate the costs. Because when you're protected correctly, you're mitigating costs, and you say, well, but insurance is costing me tom. Yes, but again, cyber attacks, lawsuits, just workers' compensation, for instance, and safety within the workplace, and how it mitigates on workers' compensation. Because if you think workers' compensation may be costly for some industries, add on to that any losses, and any claims, and their rate's going to go up, tremendously. So if we can go in there and we can, help you out and taking a look at the things that really matter in your business, and everything matters, but the things that you don't pick up, and a business person or an owner is usually looking at how he gets a client in or manufactures this and gets a profit for that, and then what their return their investment in terms of whatever it is that they're selling or they're trying to promote, but they don't, the details, they're really not into that because they have other things to worry about, and the details could be employee satisfaction or dissatisfaction. The details could be, they're again, we keep hitting on that cybersecurity. The details could be things around their workplace that could cause damages. For instance, let's just give you for instance, now with, tying it to hurricane season, getting away from the cyber thing. A lot of companies, they have to purchase commercial property insurance. Okay, but a lot of them don't purchase. Unfortunately, they don't purchase the business income part of it because they don't understand it. And the business income part of it is, it's extremely important, because if something happens to your building or the office space where you're in, and you need to move out, you need to work elsewhere. Maybe not so much now for a lot of the industries have learned that they could work outside. But if you're manufacturing, you have to close down your plant because the building is not inhabitable, and or you're in a business where you need to have an office space. You have to. There's no other way, and then you have to move elsewhere and move your records or move your computers or move your this or move your that. And because a hurricane came and blew out your windows and destroyed whatever it is in there, so that you need to be covered. And sometimes when people purchase insurance, they say, well, isn't this covered? Isn't that covered? And insurance, it has to do with covered perils. You're an attorney, you probably went through this sometime in your, that's not what you specialize in, but that's, somewhere in your education, you touched upon these things. And if it's not a covered peril, it's not covered. But nobody told me. And you're absolutely right. Now it's your responsibility as the insured to read your policy. Like, come on, who reads a policy? So it becomes my responsibility as your agent to let you know what's in your policy, not to interpret it. That's your attorneys to interpret, but to let you know what's in the policy. And their exclusion, this is excluded and that's excluded and the other thing excluded. And it's really interesting because although COVID in it of itself was not excluded, but all other of these, viruses in the same realm have been excluded from most policies. And you're going to see the new policies coming out excluding COVID as well, because as you well know, a policy is a contract, and whatever's in the contract flies, and whatever's out of the contract does not fly. And insurance companies, they're not going to pay for something that's not there. So our job is to go in there actually and explain these things to you, and not just sell you a policy. Anybody can sell you a policy, but is it the right policy? Is it something that's really going to mitigate your losses and mitigate your expenses to start with? So, basically, we're again, to your original questions, because I went off because I love talking about this, but to your original question, we saw that there was a need there for agents who who actually take the time to, and you know what, and this is something that may sound strange to most people. If we're not a fit, we're not a fit. If you say, well, listen, that's all well and good, but all I really need is that, then there are a zillion other agents out there who are willing to, who I'm sure would love to sell you whatever, but that's not us. And that happened to us, with a friend, and called us, listen, we want to go ahead and and give you the opportunity for this piece of business. And we said, really appreciate it, but I in all good conscience, I can't go sell you this piece of business if I don't know what you've got. Well, I already got somebody for that. Okay, then tell you that somebody to get you this piece of business because it's going to be to your advantage to do it that way versus spreading out what you think you're spreading out the wealth. And really, I appreciate the person, and they did it in really good conscience, but to help out. But in my good conscience, I can't do that for you. I have to take a look, and it's not being greedy. It's really helping you out or helping out the business owner.
Gotcha. Well, that was pretty solid. I didn't even have to ask any questions. You just went through all my questions. So that was good. I know we're coming up on our time, so I think maybe just one question that I thought of is, so a lot of people watching, probably small business owners, probably, maybe within, your realm of the type of work that you do, services that you provide. We touched on, or you touched on the cybersecurity, the hurricane, the commercial, the out of work or that type, those policies as well. Is there maybe any one more, if you were to say, hey, small business owner, and I know you don't like to piecemeal it and you like to have the full package, but is there anything that you would say to a small business owner generally, hey, you got to have this is kind of like a no-brainer?
Yeah, especially now in hurricane season, check out that you make sure that you have a wind policy, that it's either attached to your current policies or you have a separate policies. Because in this case, wind it could be attached to either your commercial or your GL or your commercial property policy. Also, make sure that you have flood, because that's a big one in the sense that it's not the same for the policy to say that it covers flood, but it means flood from the inside, a pipe that's broken or something like that. That flood coming in from the outside, like for instance, I don't know, there's a hurricane, waters rise, and all of a sudden and this goes for homeowners as well. Whether it's property owners or homeowners, this goes as well. So make sure you're covered with flood. Make sure you're covered with wind. Wind is, it's extremely important. If you don't have wind, and no matter what the hurricane does to your property, if you don't have wind, it's not covered. It's not covered under your general form. So
Gotcha.
that needs to be specific in there. So that's basically check for those three, whether it's commercial or residential. Make sure that your flood and your wind are in there.
Gotcha. Okay, sir. Pleasure seeing you. Glad we can make this happen. If people want to, learn more, get in contact with you, hire you, all that, where should they go? How should they find you?
You reach out to www.soraglobal.com.
Awesome.
And my
Easy.
email is in there. My personal email is there. My phone number is there. Be happy to sit down and have a conversation.
Awesome. All right, sir. Good seeing you. We'll talk to you soon, man. Take care.
Thank you so much. A pleasure.